In a moment, we'll have a bipartisan discussion with Senators Rand Paul of Kentucky and Tim Kaine of Virginia on the president's agenda and the latest efforts to end the ongoing government shutdown. But first, let's bring in Lucas Tomlinson live on the ground in Kuala Lumpur. Lucas?
Shannon, President Trump will be meeting face-to-face this week with China's leader Xi Jinping, with trade expected to dominate the agenda and after a new trade agreement framework was announced earlier by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. But first, the president presiding over a peace agreement here in Malaysia between two previously warring nations in Southeast Asia.
We saved millions of lives. I'm here on a mission of friendship and goodwill and to deepen our ties of commerce, to strengthen our common security, and to really promote strongly stability, prosperity, and peace.
Peace between Cambodia and Thailand, and the president breaking out his famous dance after arriving here in Malaysia earlier today. Tough negotiations with China remain.
I think we're going to have a deal with China.
In addition to rare earth minerals, fentanyl, and tariffs, Trump hoping to rescue America's soybean farmers. Last year, China purchased $13 billion worth of soybeans. This year, zero. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trump's top trade rep, Jamieson Greer, meeting with Chinese officials for days here in Malaysia, trying to hammer out a deal. Officials say a framework agreement on rare earth minerals has been reached.
We have a lot of things to discuss, including our farmers. We have a lot of things to discuss. Various trade deals that have been made in the past, and some broken, some not broken, but we've got many, many things.
White House officials say other trade agreements with U.S. allies in the region will be announced soon. Many of the nations here are carefully watching China's actions in the South China Sea, where Beijing has been more aggressive in recent months. China asserts a broad claim over much of the sea and has built military bases atop former reefs. Something China's President Xi Jinping promised he would not do 10 years ago in the Rose Garden alongside then-President Barack Obama.
China does not intend to pursue militarization.
China hawks have long accused Beijing of deception, all part of China's plan to replace the U.S. as the global superpower. While China continues its buildup in the region, the White House is doing the same thing in the Caribbean after Trump ordered the Navy's largest and most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, to the region. To join an armada already on station near Venezuela, where U.S. forces have destroyed at least 10 vessels accused of drug smuggling. With one exception, all on board were killed. President Trump heads to Japan next to meet the country's new prime minister. Then he's off to South Korea, and that meeting with China's leader, Xi Jinping. Shannon?
All right, Lucas Tomlinson from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you, Lucas. Joining us now for a bipartisan discussion, Senators Rand Paul and Tim Kaine. Senators, welcome to Fox News Sunday. Great to have you.
Good morning. Great to be with you. Thanks, Shannon.
All right, so let's start somewhere where I think the two of you agree, and that's on some of the last bit of what Lucas was reporting on there about those strikes out in the sea. The president says there's going to be more information and briefing coming to Capitol Hill. Here's what he said Thursday.
You know, the land is going to be next, and we may go to the Senate, we may go to the Congress and tell them about it, but I can't imagine they'd have any problem with it. I think they're going to probably like it, except for the radical left lunatics.
All right, so I'll start with you, Senator Paul. What do you need to hear in a briefing? What questions do you have?
You know, it's not so much about a briefing, but we haven't had a briefing. To be clear, we've got no information. I've been invited to no briefing. But a briefing is not enough to overcome the Constitution. The Constitution says that when you go to war, Congress has to vote on it. And during a war, then, there's a lower rules for engagement. People do sometimes get killed without due process. But the drug war or the crime war has typically been something we do through law enforcement. And so far, they have alleged that these people are drug dealers. No one said their name. No one said what evidence. No one said whether they're armed. And we've had no evidence presented. So at this point, I would call them extrajudicial killings. And this is akin to what China does, to Iran does with drug dealers. They summarily execute people without presenting evidence to the public. So it's wrong.
All right, here's what James Story, by the way, he was the top diplomat to Venezuela under the first Trump term, stayed around for a little bit of the Biden administration as well. Here's what he said to Politico. He says they've learned to live with sanctions, meaning the Venezuelans, over time. Now, this is the real possibility of use of force. That is intended, I'm certain, to rattle those closest to Maduro, encouraging them to make the decision to make a change within the government. Senator Kaine, he says the niceties are not going to work with them. It's this use of force that's actually going to change the conversation and their action.
Well, okay, so the Trump administration or this particular witness is saying this is about regime change, which that is not something that a president should be deciding on his own, especially since America has often gotten regime change very, very wrong when we have decided to do it. Often it leads to more instability, more migration. But I agree with my colleague, Senator Paul. If we're going to be in a war, whether it's against boats in Nicaragua chosen off a secret list that the president won't share with Congress or the public, or a land invasion in Venezuela, it should be done following a debate and a vote in Congress. The Ford strike group that's being deployed has an awful lot of Virginians. They shouldn't be sent in harm's way unless Congress has the guts to vote about whether a war is in the national interest.
Well, and Senator Paul, I know you said this isn't about a briefing, but would there be some level of information? Because I've heard other members say they are convinced, they have been told that they can specifically identify these boats, the people on board, and the cargo on board to the level that they're comfortable. So, Senator Paul, do you think that that needs to be a public vetting, or if lawmakers are provided that information, that's enough for you?
Won't be enough, but at the very least, it should be revealed. There's at least two boats. One boat was said to be in distress and trying to get back to land that was bombed. That was said to be a fisherman. I don't know because I don't have any of the evidence. There's also an anomaly in the sense that one of the boats where a bunch were killed, there were two that survived. If they were drug dealers, why wouldn't we prosecute them, present evidence of the drugs, show the arms they were about to invade us with, or show us something? Instead, they're being sent back to Colombia and to Ecuador without a trial, and no one's sort of trying to find out, well, who is the one behind this massive conspiracy to invade America with drugs? They're just sending them back home. So in the one instance, you're killed on sight. On the other instance, if you're captured, we just say, oh, well, we're just going to send you back to your country. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, let me turn to domestic matters because they are still percolating here in Washington. There is no end to the shutdown in sight. I want to play something that Senator Fetterman, a Democrat, one of the few who's crossed over to vote for the funding measure that came through the House. Here's what he said to our Kayleigh McEnany.
I do fundamentally believe Leader Thune is an honorable guy, and I do believe we could have a sincere conversation. Let's just open it up, and then we have our snap, we have everyone's paid, and then we can have that conversation to see if we can extend those tax credit deals.
All right, so Senator Kaine, a couple of things. Do you believe that Leader Thune is an honorable, quote, reasonable guy? And why not vote to reopen and then begin conversations, debates, negotiations?
Shannon, there's two issues that really are driving us. One is the fact that folks' health care premiums are spiking, largely because of the reconciliation bill that the Republicans passed in the summer. For example, in Virginia, if you are at 100% of poverty or below, you just got a notice this week that your health care premium is going up by 2,000%. If you're between 100% and 130%, slightly above the poverty level, your premium is going to go up by 95%. Even Republicans want to fix this. People are hurting now. Let's fix it now. But the second issue that's very important to me, and I don't challenge Senator Fetterman saying that John Thune is an honorable guy, but here's the challenge. We can't do a deal with President Trump and then have him tear it up tomorrow and start mass firings or canceling programs that he doesn't like or canceling programs that help blue states. We have to be sure that a deal is a deal. If we shake hands over a deal, Congress will follow it. Will the president follow it? And we haven't been able to get that assurance from the president, and that's not something that John Thune can assure us about. It's up to President Trump to say that he'll live by a deal. Thus far, he's not been willing to even discuss a deal, much less guarantee that he'll live by one.
Okay, so just to follow up to that, what we're talking about is extending current spending levels, no cuts, no ads, at least while you have a conversation. So, you have one of the top House Democrats this week saying, we know the American people are suffering. We know this is rippling out, but this is our leverage point, so we're going to continue this for now. What do you say to the American people who are suffering about this is just leverage?
Well, I challenge your opening assertion that we're just extending current spending levels.
Well, the measure that's come through the House
bill,
is just maintaining at current levels. You may not like the levels, but it doesn't add or cut anything.
But let me finish. If we were to vote on that and then tomorrow President Trump decides, yeah, but I'm still firing thousands more people and I'm holding back the monies that we just agreed to, why would we do a deal without a guarantee that the president's going to follow it? And we have reason to be worried because in Virginia, we've seen since January 20, canceling economic development projects in our state that were authorized and appropriated, pulling back public health funds that were authorized and appropriated. And so we see healthcare costs spiking, energy costs spiking, food costs spiking, people getting fired, federal employees in food lines. We need President Trump to agree that if we shake hands on a deal, he will honor it.
Okay, so Senator Paul, I know that you voted no on extending this continuing resolution just because you think that we're spending way too much money anyway. We need to address the issues of debt. You also don't think we should extend the subsidies because you think the healthcare system is broken. So what is the Republican alternative to getting healthcare back on track so we aren't dealing with these issues where taxpayers are really wholly subsidizing almost these entire premiums, or large, up to 80% of them?
So as we've expanded Obamacare subsidies, what's happened is premiums have continued to rise and big insurance has gotten richer and richer and richer. Everybody agrees there's a problem. I agree with Senator Kaine. There's a problem in health insurance, particularly in the individual market, the small businesses. But one thing we could do is legalize collective bargaining for the consumer. And what I mean by that is right now it's illegal to go to Costco or Sam's Club and buy your insurance. You have to be in the same trade or carpenters or cattlemen or whatever. We should let anybody. Costco has 44 million members. If someone could negotiate for 44 million members of Costco, it would drive prices down. But the current Democrat subsidies give a person who makes $225,000 $1,200 a year. If you make $225,000 a year, you don't need the government subsidizing your insurance. So I don't think the subsidies are working. I'm open to discussing it. I think if you put Senator Kaine and I in a room, I think we could figure something out. And that's part of the solution. I suggest that President Trump come forward and name 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats in the Senate to an official commission to figure this out over a 1-month period and come back with a solution. But in exchange for that, I think the Democrats need to open the government for a month, and then we need to pay the workers, pay our soldiers, and then I think we could come to a solution. But there has to be something different. It can't be the same old, because just subsidizing insurance raises the cost of insurance, enriches the insurance company, and we're still, behind the 8 ball as far as insurance costs.
We'll see if the president takes your advice. I know that you've had some differences, but you have said you think he's one of the best, if not the best, presidents in your lifetime, and you're willing to work for him.
I still say that.
We'll see if he likes your idea. I want to quickly get a comment from you guys about this situation in Nigeria, because we continue to track this. It's flying under the radar, but this prosecution of Christians and other religious minorities. The Hudson Institute says this: the Nigerian civic group Inter-Society on Civil Rights and Rule of Law finds 52,000 Christians have been killed. Over 20,000 churches have been attacked and destroyed since 2009. Thousands of Christians have been murdered and raped just this year so far. You both sponsored measures aimed at cracking down on religious persecution in foreign countries, especially ones that get a lot of U.S. aid. Senator Kaine, I'll ask you to address that. What should the U.S. be doing?
Shannon, this is a really important question. Tomorrow is International Religious Freedom Day, which is an important thing that we do around the world to uphold the notion that you should be able to worship or not as you please without being preferred or punished as a result. And in Nigeria, yes, Christians have been subject to significant violence over the last decade or so, but so have non-Christians. And some Christians who have been targeted because of their faith. Others, it's been more of a dispute between farmers and landless herders. So there's all kinds of underlying issues. Bottom line is we need to speak out against the persecution of Christians and others for their religion. I believe the U.S. has a role to play in Nigeria. We dramatically cut USAID funding to Nigeria at the beginning of this year when Donald Trump assumed office. He has restored some of the funding in September. That's a positive step. But when the U.S. exit the scene, there's a vacuum that tends to get filled by people who do worse and worse things. So I think more engagement can be helpful.
All right, quick final word to you on that point, Senator Paul.
Well, it also leads back to the issue of regime change. You know, when we decided, not we, but the president decided to have regime change in Libya, all those weapons got spread throughout the sub-Sahara, and some of those have been part of the violence. With regard to foreign aid, of course, foreign aid should be contingent on behavior. I've introduced legislation that says, you know what, if you have laws that says you'll kill your citizens over blasphemy, over rejecting one religion or accepting one religion over the other, you shouldn't get any aid. So I think aid absolutely should be contingent on religious freedom.
All right, Senators, thank you both for your time. And if you want to stay and negotiate during the commercial, especially over the healthcare issue, we welcome you to do that. Just keep us updated.
Will do.
Thanks,
Will
guys.
do.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.